Hi, welcome to Midwest Magic Cleaning. My name is Toad the Wet Sprocket, no relation. And today I wanted to talk about a question that I get asked a lot, but I've never answered, which is, are there people out there who I won't help? Or are there certain situations or households that I refuse to clean? And the answer is yes, but probably not for the reason you think. So for instance, I will clean houses that have bed bugs because I know how to treat it. And I know how to not carry those into my house. It basically boils down to spraying myself down with alcohol when I leave. But I've encountered some things that I think need to be phrased very delicately because, and this I'm going to phrase to the people who do what I do, the cleaners who help out people and post them online or whatever, even if they don't record them. Eventually, you're going to run into a personality that is so bad that it's actually worse for you to help them, and that outweighs the help that you're going to give them. It outweighs the benefit that they receive. So it boils down to, yes, I have empathy and sympathy for these people, but I had to set boundaries for myself, and that's happened several times during the course of this channel. Right now, there is a drama going on TikTok among what they call clean talk. And it's a group of people who got together to clean the house of another big TikTok creator. I'm not going to go into the drama. I'm not going to go into who it is or anything like that. It's dumb. Everybody involved with it knows it's dumb, but they're having to deal with it anyway, and everybody has something to input. Everybody has something to say about the situation. I don't care. What I do care about is that for the cleaners who went in to do the help, they've experienced something I've experienced a minimum of 3 times when doing help for other people, and that is dealing with somebody who's got borderline personality disorder. I always confuse it with bipolar disorder. And basically, borderline personality disorder is a much, much more severe version of bipolar. They're not quite the same thing. Bipolar disorder is you can deal with it, you can medicate it, you can treat it. People with borderline personality are so severe that if they don't have constant treatment and constant medication, it can get so out of hand that they will basically destroy their own lives. I've dealt with 3 of those people. And it was so bad that I had to make a rule for the channel that if I find out the person has borderline personality disorder before I go help them, I'll cancel the help. In those cases, in every case, and this is very common with people with BPD, they will look back on the help or they'll look back on the interaction and twist it in their mind to make it something bad, as if they were victimized by this whole thing. And that's basically what's going on the TikTok drama, the clean talk drama. The woman got help from, I think it was 5 cleaners, 5 big name cleaners, and they didn't do an absolute perfect job on it. And the owner of the house or the woman who lives there didn't quite get along with the main cleaner or didn't like her or something to that effect. And so then she would go through and nitpick the house and say, there's still stains on my walls. I don't know where anything is. Don't feel sympathy for this person because she made several $1,000s from the videos that she recorded. And they will twist this into something really bizarre that paints themselves as a victim. And also at the same time, it kind of puts a light on themselves to say, I'm uncovering the truth behind these free cleanups. And it makes them feel more important, as if they're uncovering a big conspiracy. And it's really bizarre to deal with. I've dealt with it 3 different times, like I said. And in my cases, I got to the point where I was like, no, these people are not only a problem for me and my channel, they're a problem for me personally. And so I got to the point where I just had to block people, like even friends in real life. I had to just outright block them and say, no, my boundary right now is you don't get access to me emotionally or intellectually or even physically. Like you don't get me as a person anymore. So as far as the cleaning goes, I'm not going to get into details about who did what and all that. I'll give you some just brief overheads, but I don't want people trying to find out who these people were or trying to identify them. That's crazy. I don't want people doing that. But there were places that I helped where after I was done, they would complain that we threw away certain things that shouldn't have been thrown away, or they would complain that we didn't do enough. These are places that I spent literally weeks cleaning. These are also places where we were dealing with extreme hoarding disorder. And the rules were set out pretty quickly, like right off the bat. I told them, I'm not going to clean the place unless she agrees to throw away 75% of everything she owns at a minimum. That's where I draw the line. If she's not willing to get rid of this stuff, I'm not going to help. So they agreed to it. And my thing was, I'll save what I can, but if it has mouse or pet poop on it, it's gone. If it has roaches on it, it's gone, because it's likely got roach eggs on it. If it's broken, stained, torn, ripped, if it's not useful anymore, it has to go. If I find a bunch of pans that are rusted, I don't care if they're cast iron skillets, they're going, because around here people love their cast iron skillets. They're not cheap. But once they're rusted, it's not worth the restoration. I will just personally buy them new cast iron skillets rather than try to restore the one that's beyond use. At that point, I consider those things to be dangerous. So just anyway. So even after doing those cleanups, people are like, yeah, they didn't do what they said they're going to. They threw this away and this was still good and all that. And it was such a self-victimization thing that it made me angry, really angry. Because myself and my son spent weeks and thousands of our own dollars to clean this specific place up. And it wasn't just the fact that they were ungrateful, it's that they were accusing us of like wrongdoing. That was clearly borderline personality disorder. I won't deal with it again. Another one was angry for basically the same reasons. We laid out the same rules, and again, weeks down the line, they were mad because they couldn't find things, and they said all we did was just put stuff in tubs and shove it out of the way, which is true to a certain extent. When you've got everything out on a kitchen table and it's not being used, it needs to be packed away and stacked and labeled and all that stuff. But anyway, borderline personality disorder, there's only so much empathy I can have for somebody before I finally have to start thinking about myself. So I had to set a boundary on what I'm willing to personally put up with, because I have empathy and I have sympathy for them, because this is a mental illness and it needs treatment badly. But once it starts affecting me personally and mentally and emotionally, and it starts impeding upon my personal life, that's when I have to cut it off. A really good example that just came up recently, I had posted a thing on my Facebook page, and I had called for job applications for my personal assistant because Jason decided to leave the company. He's going to do his own thing, but I still need a personal assistant. And that sounds crazy. I know that sounds ritzy and all that stuff, but I do 100 hours a week on this channel and TikTok and Instagram and Facebook, and trying to maintain all that as well as the social. Anyway, that's even beyond the actual physical cleaning that I do. There's a ton of stuff that I need a personal assistant for. So I put that out on Facebook and I called for some applications, and I about 3/4 of the way down in the listing, I said to apply, email me at this email address, and in the subject line put personal assistant. I did that on purpose because I need whoever is my personal assistant to have an eye for detail. I need them to read the entire listing. And the way that I know they've read the entire listing is that if they get down to how to contact me. So anybody who just responded to that thread, I automatically didn't consider. Anybody who texted me personally, I didn't consider. Now, on top of that, I had several friends, and when I say several, I mean like 10, maybe a dozen, that contacted me personally through the phone because they thought they could skip the line. And I understand where they're coming from. They're like, well, Mac knows me, so therefore I can just contact him directly. But what they didn't know is that it's skirting what I was looking for. 2 people in particular have what I believe is bipolar disorder, and that's the ones where they go long stretches without the mood changing. But when the mood does change, it's pretty dramatic, and you end up on the end of their wrath. 2 different people had contacted me wanting a job, and I just didn't know how to respond to them. I'm overwhelmed with the stuff that I'm dealing with in my personal life and in my career, and in all this stuff here. And so I just didn't respond. I didn't have time. Both of those people ended up crashing out on me, and I ended up blocking them both. And on their end, it's like a personal slight because we've been friends or family. One was a friend, one was family. And we've been related in that way emotionally for years and years. And how dare I not at least give them a text back to let them know, hey, no, I don't want to hire you, or yes, I do, or some sort of response. Totally get that. On my end, I don't owe them that explanation because it takes time that is already extremely rare out of my pockets and puts it into theirs. And on my end, they aren't realizing that the reason I didn't hire them is because of the reaction that they had to my silence. When they crashed out, it's like, this is why I didn't hire you. Because your crash outs are predictable because you are bipolar or have, borderline personality disorder. And not everybody with those disorders has that sort of reaction. These particular 2 did. And so it's like, what happens when I hire you and then a month from now you have a massive mood swing and you tell me to go F off or F myself, or you start talking in a disrespectful way toward me in my own company or in front of a client or in front of somebody we're helping. I'm not explaining that to either one of them. I just block them. I don't have time for it. That's my personal boundary. And I'm not asking for their respect. I am preemptively cutting those people out of my communication. They don't get access to me if they treat me that way. It doesn't matter whether they feel justified or not. I have a life that I'm living, and I'm trying to do my best to create my life, my income, my channels, my social media, and no one else is entitled to any of that. And but many people who know me personally believe that they are. And so anyway, I'm not going to go off on a huge rant about that, but that's my boundary. That's my fence line that I had to put up around me. I am the same way with people who have extreme hoarding disorder. If they have an extreme hoarding disorder and they're not seeking help and have no intention of seeking help, I will not clean their house, because that gets into a thing where you're diving into a house that's toxic, that is a biohazard, that often doesn't have running water, no electricity, no heat, no air conditioning. The environment itself, just breathing the air, is toxic because it's filled with ammonia. And they will argue that you can't clean their refrigerator because the food is still good. Even though the salad is literally liquefied in a bag, they won't let you throw it out. I cannot help somebody who is that mentally ill. At that point, the family has to go in and have that person either committed or, well, what they call it is declared incompetent, and then get them help that can either come over weekly or put them in a home or get them into some sort of daily treatment. And that's not something I can help with. And in the end, I'm going to be accused of throwing away family heirlooms, even though the things I threw away were just cardboard boxes. I'm going to be accused of breaking something that was already broken under 1,000 pounds of trash. I'm going to get accused of all types of things because as a result and as a consequence of severe hoarding disorder, they often have an extreme problem with blame and accountability. And so they will deflect accountability onto other people and blame them for their mess and for the way that they're living and for the appliances being broken and the utilities being shut off. And that is very common. And again, not all hoarding disorder, but extreme hoarding disorder. We're talking level 4, level 5 hoarding disorder. So I won't do it. If they have hoarding disorder and it's not so bad that they can't get rid of stuff, if it's mild enough to where they're cool with me getting rid of obvious trash and obviously broken stuff, and they can adhere to those rules, I will help them. But I will not do it for somebody who is so far gone mentally that they need interference from a doctor and from social services and from the family itself. So yes, I won't help those people out, even though I want to, and they deserve it, and I have all the empathy in the world for it. It's just a boundary that I had to set for myself. Another one that I won't help, at least until the problem is taken care of, are people who have flea infestations. Now, I've helped people with roach infestations. I've helped people who have had bed bugs, spiders, and beetles and everything else. I can't do fleas. I grew up in a house that was very poor. My dad had a couple of dogs. We had flea infestations a couple of times, and my legs would be entirely eaten up from the ankles clear to my thighs with flea bites. I would scratch them so much I would have open sores. We couldn't get rid of them for anything. We bombed the houses over and over and over and just could not get rid of them. And to this day, I will not even chance bringing fleas back to my house. And that's actually one of the reasons I'm not cleaning a house this week or even last week. We've got a house that is just waiting for me to come in and do my thing on it. I can just go balls to the wall and go nuts because nobody lives there. They got evicted. But the fleas were so bad that, and I've explained this to some of you before on members' lives and stuff like this, but with the pants that I have on right now, these collar pants here, I did a 5-minute walkthrough, maybe 10 at the most, and when I went outside, my pant legs were black from the knees down with thousands of fleas that I didn't realize was in there. I will not enter that house again until I can walk from one end of the house to the other and not have a single flea jump on me. If even one jumps on me, I'm out. So far, they have flea bombed it 5 times. They said they have 8 more flea bombs in the waiting. If that doesn't get rid of them, they're either going to have to get a professional exterminator over, or they're going to have to wait until the winter, shut down the electricity, water, gas, and winterize the home, and then open up all the windows and freeze them out. It's the only way that I found to completely get rid of them when they're that bad. There is no way that their pets weren't anemic, because I had so many fleas on me that if there were that many on a pet, the blood loss alone from the fleas drinking the blood would be enough to kill a pet, or at least make it so bad that it would have to go to the hospital and have like transfusions. So I won't do any of those either. So for those of you who do this for other people, it doesn't matter if you're doing it on camera or doing it just to do it, outside of the social media sphere. You have to be able to recognize when this is going to be a problem, and you have to be able to separate your empathy from your self-protection. Your empathy is your greatest sword and your greatest shield that you can wield in all these situations. But as the people on TikTok are finding out now, they're in the middle of what many of us have gone through with people with these kinds of disorders. We're empathetic to the fact that they're mentally ill. We have sympathy for them, and we really know that it's out of their control. They're not evil people. They're not intentionally trying to be assholes to anyone. Sorry about the language, but that's what it boils down to many of the times. You eventually are going to run into something like this, and as the people on TikTok are finding out right now, there's not a lot you can do about it, except learn to recognize the personalities that have those problems. I talk to everybody before I clean a house, and I kind of dig to see what kind of issues they're having. And if they tell me they have borderline personality disorder, or I suspect that they do, that's when I get super cautious. And I just can't allow myself to be taken in with that. I can't allow myself to be hit with the tide of their mental illness. When it creeps out of them and it starts affecting me and the people I love, that's when I cut it off. And we all go through it eventually. Ari Katarina had one where when she finished doing dishes that had not been touched in over a year, the woman complained and said she scratched her sink and went straight to Scrub Daddy because she thought she could get a payout from that. Fortunately, Ari Katarina films everything, befores, afters, and all that, and she could show that that was not the case. Al Blades accidentally mowed over a plant that a woman wanted to keep, and she tried to do like a lawsuit. And you could tell when she came out, she made it this big dramatic thing that was not appropriate or required in any way, shape, or form. In fact, Blades had offered to replace the plants. The plants he mowed over could grow back and all that. But he had gone through that as well. Barbie's gone through it several times. I've gone through it several times. And I think the problem with most of us is that we use empathy as an everyday part of our lives and as the thing that gets us through a lot of these cleanings. Like, we couldn't do it without a certain amount of empathy. But sometimes you can allow that empathy to overtake the rest of your emotional being. It can overtake your logic. And we want to be empathetic no matter what, but I think that there are some times where we have to step back and go, nope, this is affecting me personally. I'm sorry, but you're going to have to find another way to do this. Anyway, I hope none of this came across as snarky or complaining or anything like that. It's just a question I get asked a lot. And it's kind of hard when you get asked a question like this that almost sounds negative, like people are fishing for controversy or something. And the answer is yes, because then you see how long it took me to explain this, and I'm not even sure I explained it fully to the best of my ability. But I think it was worth answering. I think it's a legitimate question to ask, and I think that if you end up trying to do what I and many other cleaners do across the internet, you need to be aware that it can be a problem. It's been a problem even in a house where I paid $6,000 out of my own pocket to clean it. That included all the dumpster fees and their back rent and their phone was about to be shut off and their electric bill and getting their water turned back on. They also had a delinquent trash bill that was like $600. I ended up paying that and then paid for the new dumpsters to come in. And even after all that, there was still complaints about what we did in the house. And it was mainly, I can't find anything now in a house that had trash piled 4 feet tall from wall to wall. And so it can be an issue. So anyway, for those of you who are members, I will see you this Wednesday. Everybody else, I'll see you next weekend. Later.